again, David, I really want to thank you, man. You pulled through for the fans. It was actually absolutely phenomenal to have you here. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. You're all so sweet. I really appreciate it. All the love.
So what we'll do, if you have a question for any of the stars, please raise your hand. If I call on you, if you would, stand up and try to project. We don't do the thing where you run around with a microphone, and we found that if we put a microphone at the front and have people line up for it, everybody gets stage fright, and we never get anybody to line up for it. So it seems the best way to do it is have everybody sit in the comfort of your seat, raise your hand. We call on you, stand up and ask your question, but try to ask it loudly, and I'll try to repeat it so the entire room can hear it. So who wants to go first? Right here?
I'm confused too how I was.
And there's a lot David has forgotten.
Yes. Earl remembers everything now about the first shoot.
Okay, who else has a question? Over here?
All right, my question's for David. That final scene where you had with Courtney in Scream 5, or just Scream, whatever you want to call it, I heard was really emotional behind the scenes. So can you tell us a little bit more behind the scenes? The rumor was that you two, cried afterwards for a couple hours together. So
No, all the crying was on camera. They didn't use any of those takes. But Scream's been a really amazing experience for me. I mean, there's not a lot of films that at the end of them you have an 18-year-old daughter now. So, so there was a lot of emotion there, and there's a lot of love, but just in general, just co-parenting, and there was these strange parallels that were going on, with the movies, with real life. So when it came down to doing this scene where we're talking about, breaking up and all this stuff, it was easy to tap into emotion, you know what I mean? So, yeah, there were emotional takes. I found that a lot of the time when you get really emotional, a man gets really emotional in a scene, they'll typically want you to tone it down and they'll go for a safer take, and they did go for a safer take. But if you've ever been in one of those situations, there's often times where you do something, a lot of people say oh, it was kind of too big, can you bring it back? But then you look at the real world, or if you've had one of those conversations where you're talking about the end of a marriage, you know what I mean? There is real emotion involved, and a lot of the time they shy away from it, but I didn't in my giving it to them. So there was a lot of stuff there. We didn't cry afterwards. It was just at that time. It was more the earlier takes. And at one point I was like, hold up. In the last Scream, he's a real loony bin. Oh yeah, I cried a lot.
I just love the irony that the very first question asked emotionally cuts you like a fish.
I know. Oh yeah, and that was my line. I made up the line. Maybe you're the killer because that cut deep. That was in the scene because I read the script, but when the kid said it to me, Dylan, I was like, oh, no, it was painful. Again, life imitating art.
I'm gonna ask I'm gonna move around the audience. Where are we at? Hi. Sorry, I'm late.
Please, you are the greatest.
You're right.
He's not the greatest at all these conventions. The way he connects with the fans is unbelievable.
I totally agree. Thank you. I'm gonna go around. I don't know where we're at in the Q&A process, but I'm gonna just jump in and start letting people ask you questions from out here.
I want to apologize to you though, Matt.
Why?
For one convention we did, I was joking around about your D&D love, and I love D&D too. I don't play it like you do, but I've always felt bad about that.
I've been waiting 7 years to. You guys, who has a great question for the cast of Scooby-Doo? Hi, what's your name?
I'm Dan.
Hi Dan, I'm Matthew Lillard, I'm an Aquarius. What's your question? Hey, you're the first question, don't fuck it up. You ready? Sorry kids, I sometimes cuss. Zoinks!
I was gonna ask if you're ever gonna dye your hair blue again.
Yep, sure. Alright, who has the next question? Who has a question for the cast? Hi, what's your question? She's saying, I had no idea you were so good looking in real life. I just want to say thank you. No, she asked how much improv was happening in the movie.
In the original screen?
In the original screen.
Quite a bit. The line I'm known for, my name's not Jesus, was actually Wes Craven's line. He goes, well, we need to fill this moment. Just say something to Courtney as you're grabbing the camera, and we did a few takes, and then he leans in and goes, say, my name's not Jesus. And hence, that's the one. So, but yeah, there was a lot of improvising.
Yeah.
I think for all of us, a lot of it was in your room. Remember you used
Yeah.
we'd go to first of all, we all hung out every night. The whole cast and crew were in the same hotel. That's never happened since that I've ever worked on location.
There's a reason for that.
His room was party central.
That's
Big
100%.
surprise.
That's not a joke.
Okay, I'm going to give you this is a riddle. Guess this. Which cast member bought a go-kart and we raced it down the hallways of the hotel?
That would be David Arquette.
We couldn't turn it around. We would have to pick it up and turn it around manually and then drag race it back down the other way. We got kicked out of our hotel 3 times.
It was a double tree too, by the way. So if anyone's got a go-kart, we can bring this back.
David, what is your memory of being in that space and time in your life? Like, what are your memories about Scream 1 specifically?
Oh man, so many. But I don't know. We were all just so excited to be there. We all just gelled in such an incredible way, and just had a lot of fun, and laughed, and it was like 90s. And, I don't know. It was just really fun. We were just all we didn't know it was going to be this huge hit at the time, but we all felt good about it. And having Wes was just, working with him was just a dream in general. And he was such a sweet, soft-spoken, but amazingly twisted kind of guy. His sense of humor, he's like a professor, really. But, he has this wicked sense of humor and this incredible love for music and film and horror. He just loved scaring you, It's really what he loved doing in the most sort of technical way. But I don't know, we just had a lot of laughs. We just had a lot of fun. It was...
Well, I told the story when I joked about we did get kicked out of our hotel 3 times. And I think it was Lillard who found the round barn. So we'd be at night. Did you find that barn?
Oh, yes.
So security would come to his room, which is normally where we were, and go, all right, you guys, look, we have other guests. You have to please tone it down. So we'd be doing shit like climbing the fence and jumping in the pool at 3 a.m. and just all that. So he found this barn, which was about a half a mile away. So, at around 11 o'clock when normal people would go to bed, or before we would get we're like, load up the cooler, grab the jam box, let's go to the round barn. So we watched the sun come up quite often.
You have to understand that we shot nights.
Yeah.
And we were 22, 23, 24 years old. So we would get off of work at 6 a.m. And what do you do when you get off of work at 6 a.m. and you're 22 and you have a pocket full of money? You drink like idiots.
And buy $2,500 go-karts to race down the hallway one way.
I mean, it was incredible to, I don't know if you know this. We would walk into your room every week. First of all, we were in your room every night drinking, but like we would get like cash for per diem, and then David would go to like some random store somewhere in Santa Rosa and buy the weirdest shit you've ever seen.
Yeah. I decorated the whole room in blacklight posters, lava lamps, and like black lights with them, and like beaded curtains, like the whole thing.
You had a boat that was the size of the table.
Yeah.
This enormous like boat.
Yeah. I had like.
It was very strange. Yet remarkable. I do think the thing that's interesting about that whole thing is that nobody knows. Or nobody knew in that moment we would be here celebrating that movie 25 years later.
But it's weird about this production. Everything that you fantasize about, man, it'd be cool to work in movies, man, it'd be so much fun to go and play and hang out with cool folks and do cool shit. That's exactly what this movie was. You know, because it was a low budget, nobody had any expectations, nobody was a big star except Drew, and she got killed in the first week. You know, Friends was starting to explode. You could feel with Courtney it was starting to become like that. But, you know, we had just loads of fun. So, and it shows on the screen. Here we are. I think that's a big reason why here we are.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and because of you guys.
Who has a question on this side? Yeah. What's your question?
Look, clearly you guys, like you just said, you didn't know it was gonna take off. Everybody here knows Jason, Freddie, all that other stuff. Who was the people that, you know, dude, David Arquette, I'm looking at you, dude, you're a good dude. Who scared you when you were a kid?
When I was a kid. The guy that flashed me when I was selling maps to Stars Homes. Yeah, that guy scared me. I was like 11. Yeah, that was creepy. One of the funniest stories is, so I sold maps to Stars Homes, but then when I finally made some money and bought a house, then these buses from the Maps to Stars Home started going by my house. And I'm like, oh. For one, this isn't Scream related, but my daughter was there one time and she was with her friend. They were putting on this like circus act. They're like, we need some people to watch our, call your friends. And I called my friends in the area and no one was there. So then the next time one of these buses came by, I stopped them. I said, come inside, there's a circus show. And they all came inside. They were all from Australia. They came inside, and my daughter and her friend were like, "Whoa, what?" I was like, "Come on, you asked for an audience."
That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
It was so surreal.
You're hilarious. All right. Does anyone else want to answer that question? Like, what scared you? Like, scary movies. I'll jump to the question that somebody's going to ask at some point. What's your scary movie? What's your favorite scary movie?
Halloween. I was my freshman year of high school. As I said many times, there were 3 movies that made me want to be in movies. Animal House, Star Wars, and Halloween. They came out when I was about 14. And I came from a small town in Kentucky from a blue-collar family. And, you know, back then, you know, we didn't have your fancy Betamax. We had to go to the movie theaters, by God. And I went to see them multiple times and remember thinking, I want to. But that feeling, that communal sense of fright. I saw this cool video on YouTube where they had done a infrared filming of the audience watching Halloween in 1978. And just that feeling. Remember the first time when Michael Myers sat up in the front and that shock, we hadn't seen it. That addicted me. And here we are.
Lee, what about you?
So my earliest memory of getting scared from a movie is those stupid flying monkeys. I hated the flying monkeys. That screwed with me. I lost sleep over the flying monkeys. I won't watch until the day. I'll turn that section off. No, I hate the flying monkeys. That's it.
Dave?
I love The Shining, but when I don't mean that performance by Jack Nicholson and Jaws, like when I was a kid, like when that first came out, yeah, didn't go in the ocean very much after that.
David, how about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Mine was probably Christopher Lee's Dracula has risen from the grave. I was raised Roman Catholic, and in the beginning of that movie, this vampire victim girl, the bell's ringing, and the kid's pulling down the rope. There's blood coming down the rope, and then all of a sudden, this girl drops out of the bell. Scared the shit out of me. And it would scare me because we always, the cross and all that stuff was supposed to repel Dracula, and the fact that he could get into the church and put a victim in the bell, like, just changed all the rules for me. But then you find out later why.
Right.
What about you, Matt?
I hated The Exorcist. Your puppy's cute. All right, who has you? What's your question? Yeah,
I have a question for David.
go for it.
Yeah, David. So, Dewey is this interesting, like maybe kind of not silly character, but kind of like trying to figure himself out character in the first film. How do you, as an actor, work with that character through each film to try to make it where it became in the fifth film? Which I thought, by the way, great performance. I think everybody.
I agree. His performance in the fifth movie is fucking amazing. You're amazing.
I guess the question is, how do you build the maturity of a character that starts off a little sillier? How do you build to where you're going?
Everyone heard that question? Can you guys hear that? Okay, great. Thank you. Great question. Thank you for your question.
We had a lot of debates about like where he was, in the thing. They had him a lot like more of a drunk, that they cut a lot of that out.
Good.
Because I was saying it's just not Dewey. My life story was a little bit more like, there were a few things that I was like, this is cool, I'm cutting a little too close to home. But yeah, so I mean, there are certain things that, I had experienced in my life, and life does have a little bit of a way of kind of like, when you're young in the 90s, and then when you get into the 2020s, like things have changed. That's like it's easier to kind of be that sort of set. I think there was also a lot for that character to draw on a lot of the reality that he had lost his sister. There's all this all these like murderers and like these people doing these things, and he just wanted to be a good guy, but then he kind of got turned on by the force, so he's a little bitter at that point, and so there was a lot of things to draw from. And then if you draw from your own life experience, you can kind of like go there in a way. He had just gotten a divorce and a whole thing like that. So all that stuff.
So this young man is an actor.
Yeah!
So we've talked about career. Can you guys just talk a little about perseverance in your career? Here's my whole thing about these moments. My whole thing is like our job. You think it's glamorous and always awesome and always perfect. And our job in this moment is to tell you about our lives for real. It is not always great. We are not always on the up. Shit ebbs and flows. And I think it's more important to talk about when shit is hard than when it's all glorious. Yes, Scream was fantastic. But for 1 second, if we can articulate to you what it's like to struggle through, then we may help somebody else in this audience as well. So can you guys just talk about for 1 second what it's like to be a character actor? What it's like to persevere through a long career as a stuntman and somebody working in this industry? Like, the ups and downs is legit.
Well, I was once asked at a panel for these kids from North Carolina School for the Arts. Most were wanting to work behind the camera. One very industrious young man on the front row said, "Mr. Brown, how can I best prepare myself for a career in Hollywood?" And I said, "You really want this? You want this more than anything?" He says, "Absolutely." So the thought came to me full formed there. I will share with you now the best piece of advice I could give anybody who wants a career in the arts, in any sort of art, anything that requires self-expression and requires your spirit. What you need to do to prepare yourself is to recruit about 10 or 12 of your friends, people you trust, that you know well, and you line them up, one right after the other. And then you stand in front of them, spread your legs, and have each of them kick you in the nuts as hard as they possibly can. And if you get through all 12 without being in a ball of tears on the floor pleading for mercy, you're ready to get started. So if you cannot take rejection and failure, this will kill you. So you just have to learn to, you plan to turn around! Turn around! Behind you, kid! Behind you!
Had to get into that, and it was just perseverance. You just have to hustle and grind, and then they finally go, "Hey, come on in the coffee shop. Yeah, sit down." "No, we're not going to serve you, but you can sit down," right? And then it took, in my opinion, unless you're born into a dynasty of stunts, right? And there's some big heavy stunt dynasties out there. It's a 10-year start. Stunts is a 10-year program. So I started it off in my early 20s, and I hit my stride in my 30s, pulled it all out for the next 20 years, got tired of Advil and being sore, finally got smart, and like, hey, I'm gonna retire.
Except the big difference is, in my part, the kick in the nuts was metaphorical, and yours it's literal.
And so, that's right. So I did over 100 commercial interviews before I got one
gig.
One.
Yeah.
And you go over and you just gotta grind, and they just gonna kick you down and grind you to the ground, and you better have a high. Because if you're sensitive, there's no place for you.
Jamie.
I'm here for the nut kicking interview. Is this the nut kicking tent?
People, line up!
Hey, aren't you local?
I walked in and all I saw was Earl. Now look, what you gotta do is wear a cup. Somebody with steel tip boots is gonna come in here and gonna wow on your nuts. Listen, I'm sorry I'm late. I was getting Matt's leftovers.
I regret giving you the mic. David, how do you persevere?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how many now a lot of the auditions are on Zoom. Just countless auditions and studying all this thing and not even hearing back or not even like knowing what they thought about you. Just constantly. And then one recently I got, and I was like, what? This is amazing. So it's not like, so it takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot of even when you're, doing, one of the bigger screens or something, and then you find yourself on a set where it's indie budget and, low budget, so you don't have a trailer, you don't have any of the sort of perks that they have. I don't know, but it's always a blessing just to be able to work, and I like to stay busy, but it's a ton of rejection. I mean, and it's so much rejection that when you then get your next job, you're like, I know they're gonna fire me, or I'm not gonna remember my lines. So there's all this pressure you're putting on yourself. I've found out just in life in general, it's really a battle with myself, not beating myself up, not getting in my own way, not being my worst critic, so that helps a lot.
Dude, that's it. That's it. Right? So I have not worked in a year. So I've done X amount of movies, I've been around X amount of time. I have to feed kids. My kids are here. My daughter showed up today. But I don't have a job. So the thing you have to understand is that moments like these, at this con, you're feeding my kids. So I want you to know something. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking your money and supporting these people and me and our families. You may not hear it enough this weekend, but we are grateful and thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just real quick, my answer to that, by the way, when you are lost and you're creative, what you need to do is find other people like you. That you are a fucking pack of creative people, but you have to find your pack. Travel with people that are like you. End of story. Next question.
And you have to create. You have to create too.
Yes.
You have to create. It doesn't matter if you're getting paid for it or not. You do your thing.
This is the best thing that ever happened. Don't turn it on. Please don't turn it on.
What's up, Dave? I just want to say I don't have any kids. I don't have any kids, but I'm so hungry. So I'm just saying, I mean, do you have to have a kid to make a couple extra bucks? Who wants a combo?
Oh my God. All right, next.
You guys were so happy when I wasn't in the tent, right? You guys,
This is my kid. Say hi to Macy.
Mason!
By the way, they just spent the last 6 weeks training as an actor. So they are incredible. They just played Hamlet last year. And they're fucking amazing. And they hate every single second of this. But I'm so proud of them. Alright. I was gonna cry, but I decided not to.
No, you should cry. Cry more.
I cry all the
They
time.
should use it.
Who has another question? Okay, go ahead. Don't ask me a question. Ask everyone a question. Stu is definitely still alive. David just confirmed that.
I said in the last scream, I said, yeah, he's a real loony bin or something, a real Looney Tunes or something like that. I think. What? What was the line? He's a real loony, I think. I personally think that you're alive.
Yeah, bro.
You know it's going to be all over the internet.
Too bad they never called me.
5 minutes.
Right, what's your question?
So which one of your characters do you think you're the most like in real life?
I think our gift is, my belief is that I'm in every single one. As messed up as it is, as charming as he is, I bring me to whatever I do. I think that's my gift, actually, is that I can find a way in to love every single fucked up character I've ever played. Sorry, kids. So, I love all of them. Yes, hi.
My question is, was there ever a day when you guys were filming anything that you just would not stop laughing? Like, ever?
Yeah, all the time. It's serious. That sense of fun permeated every scene that we shot, not just our off hours when we were there. And yeah, I can remember. I remember stifling a laugh because I was watching on the monitors with you, and when you hit me, you fucking dick. And I was at the monitors, like biting my lip, like, oh God, can't laugh, can't laugh, can't laugh, can't laugh. So yeah, a lot.
Skeet's not here. Fuck Skeet. Sorry, I love Skeet, but it's always better when he's here. And Dave.
Can someone put that on YouTube? What Matt just said?
I can tell you my least favorite death. It was mine, because that meant no sequel for Earl. And that meant no sequel money for Earl.
You were in the second one, Dick.
No, I wasn't. They talked about me.
That's right.
You don't get paid for them talking about you.
Trust me.
Because if they did,
know.
Skeet's gonna be making fucking millions right now. Fuck Skeet. Hashtag.
It sucks to not make the sequel. What was your favorite death?
Oh, of all the, I mean, can you beat the Drew Barrymore like shocker?
Oh, yeah.
No.
No.
I mean, it really was like the greatest start.
Well, that's the one. Tell the story about Wes almost getting fired
Yeah.
from that scene. Y'all know that story?
You tell that story.
Well, having just read the Harvey Weinstein book, I read more about it. This was made for Dimension, and it was the first time that they had ever made a horror film. Bob Weinstein was overseeing it. And so they hire Wes, they bring him on, they got Kevin's script, we're shooting. Unbeknownst to us, who were lunkheads partying at the barn up the road, Wes was editing all during the day and shooting all during the night, because they saw the first few days of dailies and they were going to fire him. Bob Weinstein said, I don't see a movie here. This is crap. I don't see this. And Wes said, trust me, it's there. So that dude was burning the candle 24 hours a day for well over a week to cut together the opening segment. So he cut it together, put temp music, and sent it to them. Well, Weinstein calls and goes, what do I know about horror? Nothing. This is brilliant. So not only one of the most iconic scenes in horror, but one of the most iconic scenes in film was that opening segment of that movie.
Yeah.
And Wes Craven came this close to being fired over it. So that shows you nobody knows nothing.
Fuck Weinstein.
I like Tatum's death. So good.
I'm sure you do.
Okay. What you have trivia? Okay, what's your question?
So I have a comment and a question. Number one, at the beginning, you are handsome. The cast is probably one of the most sexiest casts in any horror movie.
Wait, does that mean dead or alive?
Both. Fucking sweet. But my question is, so you guys did not know that this movie was going to do well. So do you have a memory of when you knew that this movie was a huge hit?
Seeing it in a movie theater where people paid to walk through the door and seeing that response.
I kind of remember we were making this movie, and it was like the coolest thing that you can do, how to make something like this, is you have to kind of make it out of left field. So this was a crazy original idea, and they didn't know what to do, right? So when we were making it, it was about 12 million. And I just remember if we did 20 million, and then we could do really good on video. That's what I remember thinking, if we could do good on video. And then once they had the first screening, I'll never forget, in Secaucus, New York. And people were running out of the movie theater going crazy. In Secaucus.
Jersey.
Is that Jersey? Thank you, Alexa. I appreciate that. I didn't know. I asked you. I know the rules of horror movies, okay? I don't know locations. Anyway, okay, good talking to you.
She is not impressed. The fact that they dumped it on Christmas, I was like, oh, the movie sucks. And it wasn't until we ran into Wes and Marianne, the producer, and they say, congratulations, you have a hit. I'm like, we didn't really make that much money. And they said they've never seen test scores like that in a movie theater. And they're like, they're tripling their budget and it's gonna be a huge hit. Which again, here we are all these years later, and I don't think anyone expected it to be where we're at, so.
So I have a crazy story about test screening. Maybe one of the reasons they had such great test scores is because I used to work at a newsstand on Melrose, right during this whole time period, and we used to always hang out there. And they used to come by and hand out these test screenings for people. And I said, oh, what's it about? And they're like, oh, this small town, there's a killer. I was like, okay, I'll go. Because I had just filmed what they just described. So I go there, and I'm sitting in line for this test screening, and they see me. They're like, David, you can't be here. I was like, I got the test screening for this movie. I don't know what it's about. They're like, come on. But they let me sit in the back, and they just said, you can't let anyone see you. But I got to watch Wes watch the movie, and it was my favorite thing in the world, because you'd be sitting here, and you just look around, and then they're going, ha! And then, ha ha ha, like, you'd get the scream laugh thing that you'd always get, and he would just be like, it was just so awesome to watch Wes watch his film, and how it had a reaction from the audience.
You said the scream laugh. That reminds me, we had a dinner at Wes's house before we went up to Santa Rosa. But he said something to us that always stuck with me, because I'd worked with him a couple of times before. And the last movie I had a small thing on Vampire in Brooklyn, but Wes said to us, he goes, we're making a satire of horror films. We're making a satire of the genre. However, we must never fall in the trap of thinking we're making a comedy. Because as I learned a very valuable lesson on my last film, if it is not scary, it will not be funny. So, he pulled off that perfect balancing act and got a lot of laughs and screams and laughter.
Is it anyone's birthday today? Is it your birthday for real?
Happy birthday.
Hey,
We're coming to the end of our experience. Yes, we'll go an extra 5 minutes. We have one last trivia. We're gonna need another last trivia. Your eyes are so freaky. Who has a question though? We're into the last of the questions. So don't suck. Come here. Are you Elvis? You look amazing.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Oh, that's amazing. Everything, everywhere, all at once is great.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Hi. I would love to hear a little bit about Never Been Kissed. That's like my favorite movie for all of my life, so I would love to hear about it. That's you.
oh man. Oh man. What would you like to know about it?
Start at the beginning. Where were you?
And she wants to know everything, everywhere, all at once.
Well, I'd known Drew for a long time. We were grew up in the city and friends, so she was very much like a family member and friend. So that opportunity when that came up to play her brother was really, there was a lot of love, and almost like had watched her grow up to a certain degree. We all kind of did in general as film audiences, but then getting to know her and then finally seeing her blossom into this, incredible person and businesswoman and actress. So it was fun. I mean, it was really a great. Do you want to hear a horror story about it? Yeah. All right. This is But Courtney was filming a movie called The Runner or something like that about some gambler. She had some love scene, and we were I was up there with her. God, this is really scary. Some of the kids might not want to hear. Enjoy. But we got into an argument about this love scene, and I for a lot of my life was very self-abusive. So I grabbed a wine glass and went and broke it over my forehead, because I'm insane. But I got all these I had about to start Never Been Kissed. So all this blood, it was the craziest wrestling blood ever. And I went and got stitches and everything. And then I had to go to this set. So in the movie, my bangs are like this, covering up like 18 stitches. So I hope you like that. Monster-Mania! Nobody shares like I shared.
Okay.
That doesn't ruin your love for her.
Please do not post that on the internet.
We could save that for the DVD extras.
Please never ask a question about that movie again. That was a moment of celebration. And yet it ended up not being that moment. Hi, oh, young man, please stand up. You're Lucas. Yeah, no. Oh, Aisha, my bad. Sorry.
This is my dad's question. He's just deaf. And then he asked, how did you all get into the movie?
In the screen? Oh. Start.
I took a wine glass, I smashed it on my head. And you look already dead, so I auditioned multiple times, and because Wes Craven liked me, he gave me a break. It was really, he gave me a career because of that. I was very lucky.
Me too. Dewey was written as this like big like football jock. And I was like, I think I could do something different with him, Wes. And he was like, wow, let me think about it. So yes, he too gave me a career.
I had worked with Wes on, I went up to LA, just moved out there from Chicago, went out to try it out. I got a pilot, and I got a TV movie, and I called my wife and I said, we have to move out here because this is low-hanging fruit. So we moved, the pilot didn't get picked up, the movie came and went, and I had 7 months of nothing. And I'd been doing pretty well in Chicago. Anyway, the same casting director who did the pilot had called and asked for me. And so I went in, they said, you know, they're super secretive, it's a Wes Craven project. They're not giving the script out. You have to go to the office to read it. So I have my second favorite scary movie ever is Nightmare on Elm Street. And I did not like some of the sequels. So I didn't know at that time that Wes didn't have anything to do with anything except Dream Warriors. So I go to the office and it says Nightmare 7. And I thought, shit. So I start to read it. It was the first meta horror film before this. So anyway, long story short, I got cast in it in one scene, nice scene. At the end of the night, Wes, we're like 3 or 4 in the morning when we wrap because we shot at a hospital. There's a knock, I'm in the honey wagon, you know, the tiny little dressing room, and there's a knock on my door. I'm like, oh. So I open the door and it's Wes. And he said, hey, I'm so glad Gary pushed for me to hire you. This is really good. Here's my number, let's stay in touch. So that's what led to future movies. And then I got Scary Movies, it was called Scary Movie, which you probably most know, and heard everybody talking about it. So I got a copy and I read it. Honest to God, I didn't see what was special about the script. Like, well, all the plot points fit, you know? And a lot of those movies that, because Kevin and I are the same age, so a lot of the movies that we watched that influenced this film, a lot of them didn't make sense. But anyway, I didn't see it until we got there and we shot it. So that's how I ended up in it, a phone call from Wes. And I called their office and said, hey man, I just read this Scary Movie. And his assistant, Jeff Fenner, at the time, he said, actually, we were talking about you. I think Wes wants you to be the Kenny Cameron, the guy. So that's it.
Yeah. So I took the easy route. And, you know, from the stunt side of the world, you have a stunt coordinator who's the boss. And Tony Caesar, who was the stunt coordinator second unit, he did 18 of Wes's films. And I probably did 6 to 8. So I knew Wes, I knew Tony. Tony and I are still in touch to this day, you know, great friends. Families grew up together. And I had a history with Drew, because I worked with Drew on a few other films. And he goes, hey, we got this opening sequence, why don't you come on up here and let's do this? I'm like, okay, I'm a working stunt guy. So I'm like, yeah, sure. And so that's how I hit Scream 1, and then he brought me back for Scream 2. I did
You worked with Wes prior to that?
Yeah, we did, I think we did
Which
Nightmare.
ones? You did New
Right,
Nightmare.
Nightmare was on that one. People Under the Stairs. What year was that?
90.
It was all.
Shocker, People on the Stairs, I forget which one was
Yeah,
first.
so.
But 91.
So I think the first film I did with Wes was the original Nightmare. I think that was like 90. You guys know, when was Nightmare on Elm Street?
The first Nightmare? 1984.
There you go, that was the first one. That's where I,
Yeah.
So that's, and here we are up in mid-90s, early 90s, I'm still working on Wes's films. So we did a bunch, it was great, and he trusted me, and I didn't have too many take twos as a stunt guy, so I guess that was good. He kept allowing Tony to bring me back in.
It's good.
Yeah. What about you, Lillard? You didn't answer the question.
I'm about to. So I want you to know something. Can you stand up real quick? You just signed all that for your dad.
Yeah.
I want you to know, I have kids. I think you're an amazing young man. Can I give this to you? That was incredible. I want you to know, that's what you do with your life, but you're a remarkable young man. Yeah.
Well done.
So, him crying is going to make me cry. Thank you. That's Marley. So, two things. I auditioned for Skeet's role, and I didn't get that shit.
Because hashtag.
No, I auditioned for it, and they said to me, hey, will you come back in like 3 hours and meet Wes Craven to audition for this other role? Here's 15 pages of lines. Sorry, the kid's killing me. And I jumped in and I did it, and he gave me the job in the room. But the important part is that we were shooting the movie. We talk about hope and how you continue and persevere, which I think is super important, way more important than talking about success. It's like, how do you fucking survive? And so in the movie, we're shooting the movie at one set cell phone, and Wes had the cell phone, and I had to call my mom. It was my mom's birthday. And so I found Wes, and he was talking to Marianne, the producer. He's like, we were just talking about you. I'm like, why? He's like, well, we were just saying that one day you're going to win an Academy Award. And I said, well, you should call my mom and tell her that. It's her birthday. And you have the only cell phone. And so she did. He picked up the phone, called my mom, and said, someday your son's going to win an Academy Award. So in moments like this, when I haven't worked in a year, and you start to wonder if you're ever going to work again, you like have to hold on to these little trinkets of confidence. And so for me, Wes Craven, in that moment of like one day you'll win an Academy Award, is the thing that lets you have hope that someday you're going to work again. I want to say thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you, Dave, for having us all, for helping us speed up our We are so grateful that you're celebrating with us. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, a big round of applause for everyone from the Scream Reunion. We will have Alien and Aliens Reunion up next, followed by the costume contest.